of his summary. He appealed his summary conviction.
What are we doing?
He was found
Oh, I forgot my
guilty
phone.
by Assassett County Police.
I need my
He's
phone.
appealed
Is that our newest system?
to the Superior Court. A $100 fine.
Yeah.
It would be Commonwealth Court. We'll have to see where he filed the appeal to. Because then they're.
Oh, okay.
Well, I bet he appealed to the Superior Court. It would be the Commonwealth Court. I didn't think to look at that part of it. Because the judge just issued a 1995 order. He's got. Yes. Give him your reasons for the appeal. Let's see if I can find which one he is. This guy. It's going to cost him more to produce the transcript than he got fined. IFB, right? Wasn't he denied that recently? Uh-oh. What? Good. I didn't know that. No.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for crunching those numbers. I'll call the stated session of City Council to order. Please rise for the invocation followed by the pledge of the flag. In this meeting tonight, we ask for your guidance because a lack of guidance doesn't allow a city to progress. Let us not be misguided in this meeting so that we do not make decisions that produce ineffective results. Also, during this meeting, we ask that you watch over the members of our law enforcement community, especially tonight as we welcome a new officer to our city, say goodbye to an individual who has given unwavering support and service to our residents, and two of our fine officers who are taking the oath to assume responsibility of leadership positions. Protect them from harm and in their performance and of their duty every day. Help them, we pray, to keep our city safe, straight, and clean during our day and night. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ettinger?
Here.
Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles?
Here.
Mrs. Sultana?
Here.
Mayor Pianto?
Here. This time we have approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any additions or deletions?
Yeah, are we gonna withdraw bill number 1?
We'll do that at the end as we discussed last night, so that if there's anybody here who'd like to address it, it's on the agenda, they can address it at the beginning of the meeting. I don't want to keep them here until the entire night. They would only be able to address it under item number 16. This way, that if it stays on the agenda, they'll be able to do it under public comment number 9.
We discussed last night to withdraw it though? I mean,
Yes,
We will.
yeah, we will.
Withdraw
We will.
it at that point.
We'll withdraw it at that time.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Do I have to take a vote then
Go
to
ahead, please.
approve it? Okay. Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano? Oh, I'm sorry. Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. I apologize for
No
that.
problem.
Mayor Pianto?
Aye.
And Mr. Brown?
Old habits.
At this time, we have the opportunity to swear in a new officer and also promote a few and say goodbye to one who's retiring. I just want to preface before I introduce the chief that,
Mayor, excuse me, can we approve the minutes first?
I thought we did that. I'm
No,
sorry.
we just did the
Let's
agenda.
do that. I have it crossed off.
Sorry.
Move to approve the minute. Second.
Moving to second, additions, deletions, or corrections. Roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Abstain.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Pianto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
I always preface my remarks whenever I'm in public by commending the law enforcement division of our city, our Easton Police Department, because I took office in 2008 when the vernacular was Latin Kings, Crips, Bloods, and any other gang you can think of, national gangs who were here in our city causing havoc, violence, shootings, drug dealings. And in 2008, we added 11 members to our police department, and we continued on a training program that taught officers to de-escalate, but yet enforce the law against criminals. I'm a very strong believer you do the crime, you do the time. And whether or not our job is the social justice individual up at the courts, that's a totally different subject. It's not for us. For us, it's to enforce the laws. And our gentlemen and ladies in that department enforce the laws so well that even I sometimes have a hard time believing that this is the same city it was in 2008. This is a great city. It's safe. It's clean. People are moving in because it's safe and clean. People are moving into our neighborhoods, back into the West Ward. We have families moving into the West Ward. We have the chief one of the chief executive officers of Hearst move into Washington Street. I mean, these are good neighborhoods that are coming back, and that's really what we need to see more of. So I just want to, before I introduce the chief to get on with the swearing in, I wanted to be able to say that police departments across this country are taking a beating. Ours isn't, because ours has done a great job. And I just want to thank the guys who are stepping up to leadership positions. I want to thank Captain Beitler, who was here for over 20 years. I think it was close to 25. And you have a beard now and everything.
Didn't recognize
But I didn't recognize him. He was out of uniform. I usually see him in a white shirt. He's in a blue shirt tonight. But I really thank you also, Captain, for helping us make these changes over the last 13 years. It's been a real honor to be mayor of a city that I feel safe in. And I can't say I felt safe before 2008. So thank you very much. Chief.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that, as always. Chief Carl Scalzo, City of Easton Police Department, 48 North 4th Street. Before we begin tonight, just as I always do, I'd like to thank the Mayor, the City Administration, City Council, for all of your unwavering support over the years. As you know, as I tell you all the time, that support has been instrumental in the department's growth and our unprecedented success. And I'd also like to thank the community who's here tonight to watch the members this evening for this very important event for the promotions and the swearing in of our new officer. We'll begin the evening with the swearing in of our newest officer as he begins his journey in law enforcement with the City of Easton Police Department. So if I could have Francisco Rivera please step forward for me. Officer Rivera has committed to protecting and serving the citizens of the City of Easton. It's not a commitment that we or he takes lightly. It must be done with honor and integrity. Officer Rivera should be proud of what he has accomplished so far just in being selected to the ranks of this department. The requirements and the duties of a police officer are ever changing, and very often it becomes a thankless job. Make no mistake about it, that for the men and women who serve, it's a calling and not just a job. This is not a job that should ever be entered into simply for someone who seeks stability in a career or a paycheck. It's a profession that requires selflessness, dedication, devotion to fellow officers, the men and women of the city, and the city as a whole. In the hiring process, the officer who stands before you has demonstrated the desire to devote himself to the safety of this community and the citizens that he will tonight swear to defend. To the family of Officer Rivera, I want to thank you for the sacrifices that you have already made as he embarks on this journey, and to the sacrifices that you will be asked to make as he continues within his career. I am grateful for the promised commitment that Officer Rivera has made to this department and to this community, and I wish him nothing but the best for a long, fruitful, and safe career. Step up, swearing in.
I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth. And I will enforce the laws of this Commonwealth and the ordinance of Easton. And that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. I do further swear that I will uphold, obey, and enforce the law without consideration of a person's race, color, sex, religious creed, sexual orientation, age, national origin, ancestry, handicap, or disability. I do further swear that I do not advocate nor am I knowingly a member of any organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States of America or of this Commonwealth. Nor will I, by force or violence, deny other persons the rights under the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I do further swear that I will not so advocate nor will I knowingly become a member of any such organization during the period that I'm a police officer of the city of Easton.
Okay, if I could have Joe Alonso, please step forward. Joe Alonso is being promoted to the rank of lieutenant, where he will serve as the officer in charge of the patrol division. Lieutenant Alonso began his employment with the City of Easton Police Department in 2004 and has been a dedicated officer during his time with the department. In 2005, Lieutenant Alonso, who I'll refer to him as Lieutenant Alonso from this point forward, was assigned to be a field training officer where he trained new officers and prepared them for their careers as an Easton police officer. In 2007, Lieutenant Alonso was assigned to the Accident Investigation Unit. In 2007, Lieutenant Alonso joined the Easton Police Department's Special Response Unit as a member of the Crisis Negotiation Team. In 2008, Lieutenant Alonso was assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division, where he served as a crimes investigator. In 2012, Lieutenant Alonso was promoted to the rank of sergeant, where he was assigned to the Patrol Division. In 2018, Lieutenant Alonso graduated from Boston University with a master's degree in criminal justice. Throughout his career, Lieutenant Alonso has been recognized with numerous awards and citations, including in 2018, where the Kiwanis Club of Easton recognized him as Easton Police Department's Officer of the Year. Lieutenant Alonso has dedicated 19 years to the law enforcement profession and over 17 years to the City of Easton as a police officer. Therefore, I recommend that Lieutenant Alonso be promoted to the rank of lieutenant to oversee the department's patrol division.
I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of this Commonwealth, that I will enforce the laws of this Commonwealth and the ordinance of Easton, and I will discharge the duties as a lieutenant with fidelity. I do further swear that I will uphold, obey, and enforce the law without consideration of a person's race, color, sex, religious creed, sexual orientation, age, national origin, ancestry, handicap, or disability. I do further swear that I do not advocate, nor am I knowingly a member of any organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States of America, or of this Commonwealth. Nor will I, by force or violence, deny other persons their rights under the United States Constitution or this Commonwealth. I do further swear that I will not so advocate, nor will I knowingly become a member of such organization during the period that I'm a lieutenant of the City of Easton.
And if I can have Sal Christofoli, please step forward. Sal Christofoli is being promoted to the rank of captain, where he will serve as the captain of field services. Captain Christofoli began his employment with the City of Easton Police Department in 1999 and has been a dedicated officer during his time with the department. In 2001, Captain Christofoli was sworn in as an active member of the Northampton County Drug Task Force. In 2005, Captain Christofoli was assigned to the Criminal Investigation Unit, where he served as a vice detective. In 2005, Captain Christofoli was sworn in as a federal task force member with the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigations. In 2005, Captain Christofoli was recognized by the state of Pennsylvania as an expert witness in drug trafficking. In 2009, Captain Christofoli was promoted to the rank of inspector, where he became the first-line supervisor for the Vice Unit. In 2012, Captain Christofoli was assigned as a member of the Easton Police Department Special Response Unit, where he eventually became a sniper. In 2017, Captain Christofoli was promoted to the rank of lieutenant and was assigned as the Record and Traffics Commander. In 2019, Captain Christofoli was assigned the commander of the Patrol Division. Captain Christofoli has been recognized throughout his career with numerous awards and citations, including in 2007 when the Kiwanis Club of Easton recognized him as the Easton Police Department Officer of the Year. Captain Christofoli has dedicated over 22 years to the law enforcement profession and to the City of Easton as a police officer. Therefore, I recommend he be promoted to the rank of Captain of Field Services.
I, Salvatore Christofoli,
Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the
and
United
the
States
Constitution of this Commonwealth.
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
That I will enforce the laws
I will enforce the laws
of this Commonwealth
of this Commonwealth
and the ordinance of Easton,
and the ordinance of Easton,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of my office as a captain
of my office of
with fidelity.
captain with fidelity.
I do further swear
I do further swear
that I will uphold,
that I will uphold,
obey,
obey,
and enforce
and enforce
the law without consideration
the law without consideration
of a person's race,
of a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap,
handicap,
or disability.
or disability.
I do further swear
I do further swear
that I do not advocate,
that I do not advocate,
nor am I knowingly a member
nor am I knowingly a member
of any organization
of any organization
that advocates the overthrow
that advocates the overthrow
of the government of the United States
of the government of the United
or this
States
Commonwealth.
or this Commonwealth.
Nor will I,
Nor will I,
by force or violence,
by force or violence,
deny other persons
deny other persons
their rights under the Constitution
their rights under the
of
Constitution
the United States
of the United States
and this Commonwealth.
and this Commonwealth.
I do further swear
I do further swear
that I will not so advocate,
that I will not so advocate,
nor will I knowingly become
nor will I knowingly become
a member of such organization
a member of such organization
during the period
during the period
that I'm a captain in the Easton Police Department.
that I am a captain in the Easton Police Department.
Okay, this last one's a little tough for me. As many of you are aware, this is the first time I've been standing before you here in a white shirt without having this next gentleman standing next to me in the white shirt. So I've been chief about 10 years, and I can say that for my entire time as chief. So if I could have Captain David Beitler, please step forward. This evening is bittersweet night for me as we welcome a new officer and celebrate the promotions of two others. It's bittersweet because I'm forced to say thank you and goodbye to one of Easton's finest officers, Captain Dave Beitler, who retired on January 3rd, 2022. Captain Beitler began his career in 1997 with the Easton Police Department, and throughout his 25-year career, he has been a member or a leader of many of the department's specialty units. Officer Beitler was a member of the Special Response Unit, the Accident Investigation Unit, and the Criminal Investigation Unit, just to name a few. In addition, he was a firearms instructor, and he ran the department's DUI program. Captain Beitler was a sergeant of patrol, a lieutenant of patrol, a lieutenant of professional standards, a captain of administrative services, and he'll be retiring as a captain of field services. Captain Beitler was also a graduate of the FBI National Academy for Law Enforcement Leaders. Captain Beitler has dedicated his entire professional life to the Easton Police Department and to the city of Easton. The residents of this city, the administration here today, as well as City Council in its entirety should know that every bit of growth that you have witnessed within the Easton Police Department over the past 10 to 15 years has been directly related to the hard work and dedication of David Beitler. I do not make that statement lightly, and that has been an instrumental part of my success as Chief of Police, and I am eternally grateful for his leadership, his friendship, and his professionalism throughout the past 20-plus years. The city's great loss is that he will never take the reins as chief of this department, as he is certainly qualified and deserved to do so. Still, the department is grateful for all he has selfishly given and all he has done to contribute to the Easton Police Department's unprecedented success. We have a plaque here for Captain Beitler from the department in grateful appreciation and recognition for 25 years of faithful service with the Easton Police Department, February 10th, 1997 to January 3rd, 2022. Thank you.
Well, Captain Beitler, we also have a certificate of appreciation for you, but before I get to that, I'll let other members of the council identify you and then speak to any of the others they want to speak to. I would like to say that I want to thank you. When I'm out on the scene at an incident, you're there. You're not a captain that stays at home. You're out there making sure everything goes well. And I think that's important for your officers to see you there. But that's just a small part of what goes on in the Easton Police Department. All the things that you were involved in behind the scenes, that's really what gave the professionalism and stature that this department now has regionally. When I'm proud of when we're called by other departments in other areas of the valley to help, either a hostage situation or a person's held up in a room, they're not coming out, they're armed. I've watched a number of incidents like that where you were there, and that gets done before the incident. You you can't talk about the incident that day. The training takes place before that. So I really want to thank you for that, and wish you the best wishes for a long, healthy retirement. I know you're back working already, but you'll be okay. We'll miss you, but the good news is you and the chief have, and really other captains have really trained other officers to come up through the ranks, and I think that's really important. You have a bench. It's probably the only department that we have a bench in, right, Louis? But we do have a bench there, and it's good to see other people moving up. Thank you. Start with Peter.
Thank you, Mayor. Dave, it's been a pleasure. I remember being assigned to public safety when I first got elected, and we had several meetings together. And I want to thank you just for helping me learn more about the department, obviously, and just your institutional knowledge that you bestowed upon me. So thank you for your service to the city and its residents. Wish you nothing but the best of luck in your retirement. Hopefully you'll come down to the city. You'll spend some money that we're going to give you in your retirement.
We're going out to dinner tonight.
Okay. All right. See, you're doing it. Thank you so much. But honestly, joking aside, congratulations. Best of luck to you, and please stay in touch.
Mrs. Sultana.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for taking care of city. Thank you, and good luck with the future. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Dr. Ogles.
This might be a little long, but this past week there was an accident right almost in front of my house, and it's head on Lafayette Street, and I think there were 5 police cars that responded, a couple fire trucks and that. In the one car was a man and his child, 7 years old. Neither one was hurt, but they got out of the car, and a firefighter came, took the boy by the hand and took him over and set him on a fire truck. And I was watching it, and I was like, oh. Police officer came, saw the little boy was shivering, walked over to the ambulance, pulled out a blanket, and came over and put it around him. And I commend the police officers and firefighter to do that. But I thought for a minute, and I said, it's a culture. It's a culture that was developed within those departments that is there to help people. And it takes the leadership to develop that culture. And I know you are an intricate part of that leadership. So I thank you for that, because those guys are out there, and one woman out there, doing that. They are looking after the people of the city of Easton. And it's because of the culture that has been developed by you and the other leaders in the department. So thank you very much.
Councilman Anger?
I don't know what I could add to what's already been said. The professionalism that you've shown all the way through is just, I remember maybe a year or so ago, an incident involved some of my family members. You were on the scene. You came up to me right away and assured me that my family members were okay. And just knowing everything that was going on, involving yourself, is kind of remarkable. I don't know what else I could add. I just thank you for your service. I thank your family for letting you serve for us, and wish you all the best, my friend.
Councilman O'Connell.
Dave, thank you very much for all your years of service and your dedication. Like Councilman Edgar said, I can't really add very much, but you've been a great asset to the department, a real role model for all the younger people coming onto the force, and it's really Easton's loss that you're retired. But I wish you well in your retirement, and I hope everything goes your way. And you've been a great cop. Thanks very much.
Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Dave, I'm certainly going to miss you. We've had many conversations over the years, here and Ballhead. You are what we call a people's person. What you see in uniform is what you see out of the uniform also. You touch many lives in the city, throughout our city, West Ward, College Hill, South Side. And I wanted to give you the certificate of honeydew list. Let's see. Honeydew list says dinner tonight, laundry tomorrow, walk the dog, take the kids to school. No, just kidding. I wish you nothing but the best, babe. And I know I'll see you around, so we'll get to talk more. I wish you speed and all that is becoming your way. Thank you for serving.
Thank you, Captain. If you want to come up for the certificate. To the other gentlemen that were promoted and welcoming our new officer, you are joining, as I said, I can't be more prouder of this department. And you're joining a department that is well respected in the region. And to Joe and Sal, you guys have done a great job that allowed you to move up to this position. And I'm going to look forward to working with you guys. I've worked with both of you for the last 14 years, and it's been a pleasure. I can't say enough about the work that is done in the department behind the scenes that prepare people. I think the Lehigh Valley Social Justice Justice Institute. They were when they came to see me. Marv Boyer and I went to school together, and they were so impressed with the training that goes on in that building that we built, and I think they understood a little bit more that our police officers are professionals, and they're not just there to bang heads, but when they have to, they can. And I know that I have a friend in Allentown who questioned me, why do we keep doing all these drug raids? And told me it's our strategy. Our strategy is to get the drug dealers, the street dealers, off the streets, because they're the ones that are creating all the violence. And anytime we can do that, and we've done it for 14 years without an incident. Not an actor or a police officer has been hurt. That's a remarkable legend that you have created, all of you. And I think that's important. And I think to know that we can go into a real gangbanger drug dealer who's shooting up the neighborhood and take that person into custody without an incident, without them getting hurt or us getting hurt, I'm very proud. So all of you who are just joining our department or being promoted, and of course, Captain Hurricane, I really appreciate your service. So thank you very much. Anyone else like to say anything? Okay. Thank you. We're going to move on to public comment. The public has a right now to speak to any agenda item. If you're here to speak about parking, downtown residential parking permit, that is on the agenda. I don't see anybody here. Unless Dave Hopkins wants to talk about it. I know he doesn't want to talk about parking. He doesn't want to talk about parking. Is there anyone who would like to address the city council on any agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move on to consent agenda, Madam Clerk.
Under the consent agenda, we have a resolution approving a certificate of appropriateness for 241 Spring Garden Street. Also approving a certificate for 353 Northampton Street. Certificate of appropriateness for 325 Pine Street. Certificate of appropriateness for 169 Northampton Street. Certificate of appropriateness for 117 North 3rd Street. We have a resolution authorizing the police department to dispose of old records. We also have a resolution appointing, making appointments to the Environmental Advisory Council and the Civil Service Board. And we also have a resolution where we will, where the mayor, hang on 1 minute. Nope. Where the city will participate in the Sustainable Communities Essentials Certification Program. And then last is where the Council of the City of Easton appoints Mr. Brian Lawser to the position of the second city solicitor. Oh my God.
Move the consent agenda.
Second. Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger.
Aye.
Mr. Milan.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell.
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles.
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana.
Aye.
And Mayor Panto.
Aye. There are no reports received by council. Go right into committee reports. Vice Mayor Brown, Finance Committee.
I have no report today night, but I do want to turn it over at this point to Mr. Zanecki, and he will be giving council an update.
I have it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so what I wanted to do this evening was just give council a quick update on where things stand with the department, with 2021 results. We're currently going through the year-end book close process, and obviously we are not yet set with results, but we do have some preliminary figures that I wanted to share, and I would just underscore that they are preliminary, but we're pretty comfortable that they're not going to change significantly. Starting with revenues, real estate taxes came in approximately 3.4% under budget, or about just under 300,000. We did send about 400,000 over to our collections agency, Portnoy. So we believe that in the long run we will collect all of that money that is owed to the city there. Admissions tax is down about 50%. I think the main driver there is the State Theater. There were virtually no shows last year, 2020. They didn't really open the doors, so we're hoping that things do pick up back there and that we can bounce back with admissions. Mercantile taxes, which is a combination of our business privilege tax, business licenses, mechanical and amusement. If we combine those, we're up 30%, or about 203,000, which seems to point to businesses doing well throughout 2021. Kind of flows into the next couple of bullet points. Residential EIT and non-residential EIT are both up, combined about 752 on the resident EIT, and just slightly off on the non-resident EIT versus the budget. I would like to point out, though, that if we compare 2021 results to 2020, both of these line items were up in double digits. I think it was 13% for resident and about 11% for non-resident, which is obviously a significant increase. I have reached out to our collections group, Keystone, to confirm that those figures are accurate, but that's what we are seeing at this point based on the reporting that they have provided.
Mark, just a second.
Yes.
When you say non-resident EIT was off by 1.8%, you mean off of what?
Of the budget.
Budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Which
Correct.
was 20% less than the year before.
I believe so, yes.
We budgeted 21 at 80% of 19 or 20, and we budgeted 21. But we revised that budget in 19 or 20 rather.
20.
21, we went 80% of the totals. So we're still, we're off compared to historically, but at least we're not off from what our budget was.
Well, historically, we did better.
Yes.
But versus the budget, yes. So there's,
Yeah,
a little.
I'm just, in that sentence, when you're writing it and you say an EIT was up by 11%, and then I continue to read and I see non-resident was off by 1.8%, it seems like it was down 1.8%.
It was. Versus the budget.
Versus the budget.
Correct, versus the budget.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. So yes, we were off by about $40,000 versus the budget. But again, I think maybe the more relevant part is comparing versus last year, versus 2020, and showing that double-digit growth in both of those lines. And I know, Dr. Ruggles, we've talked about kind of them not being in line when we looked at the trends, but I think this will show that they're both growing at 10+%. So that's pretty significant. I believe in one of the prior meetings this year, Mayor did mention that casino revenue had come in. In total, we finished 52% higher than what we had budgeted, which was about 314,000. I think well over $900,000 that came in against a budget of 600. Parking tickets and fines were off or down compared to the budget by about $70,000. If you recall, we did have some difficulty hiring PEOs during the year. We've had there was some turnover, and it's just a tough job market. But I think that they have now fully staffed up, so I would assume that those numbers are going to hold going forward. Look at parking meters, both the credit card and app, as well as coin collections. Those did fall pretty short of our budget by about $353,000. That's obviously not great, but I think given the continued pandemic, it may be a driver for that. Another interesting point there is that we saw this throughout the year, but now at the end of the year, the shift has really gone from coins over to credit, electronic. We'll call it the credit card and apps as far as payment. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, and then maybe adjust the budget accordingly. Our utilities, MS4, sewer, trash, all seem to be in line. We're still verifying those numbers, but those seem to be good. Monthly parking revenues were down in the garages. I think not surprisingly, a lot of folks were working from home last year and continue to do so. So we don't have nearly as many parking passes handed out to employees as we thought we would. And then, say on the revenue side, last piece is the daily parking in the garages was actually up about $66,000 over the budget for 2021.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
What was the target for combined parking meter revenue?
Combined parking, we had, let's see here. Daily parking in the intermodal, we had budgeted 15,000, and then daily parking at 3rd Street was 770. So
That's a pretty significant figure then that we're.
correct.
Yeah, parking took a hit, no doubt.
Yes. Parking definitely took a hit. On the expense side, we're still working through those, but some of the bigger numbers obviously are headcount related. So what we did is we rolled up for the general fund salaries, benefits, and wages, and compared those to the budget, and we were under budget by just shy of $300,000. Unfortunately, and not unexpectedly, our overtime, specifically in fire, did gobble that up. So basically, those two evened each other out. So that's again at a high level where things stand with the preliminary figures. I did want to also provide a quick update on staffing within the department. As you may recall, we've been down basically 2 clerks for the last year or so. We're finally getting back up to speed. Some has been through promotions. Others, have left to spend time with children and whatnot as their families have grown. Last week did really highlight our need to get the front office fully staffed. As you may have heard, we did have some COVID cases up front, and folks were out, and that caused a bit of an issue with not having the people up in the front to be able to handle our customers coming in. So we're glad we're getting that up and running. In addition, we are bringing in some additional resources to help us stay on track with year-end closing and make sure that we can be in a good position to provide a more timely audit this year. Lastly, I'll be providing a 2-year budget in the next meeting or two. I know that is due as well. And with that, I'll say thank you and ask if there are any questions at this point.
So, when we met in October, council had an informal agreement that we would have a budget amendment before the end of the month, and that you guys would have given us numbers to amend the budget based on November's numbers. Is that not going to happen?
We're unfortunately not in a position to do that. Last week, basically having everybody at the front office out for the week really, yeah, didn't help.
So we approved the budget with numbers from just September, correct? That's what we approved the budget on.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Mark or Councilmember Vice Mayor Brown? All right, move on to Economic Development Committee, Councilmember O'Connell.
I don't have a report, Mayor, and there was no vacant property meeting today. We did not have a quorum. I did just want to mention briefly that I'm a member of the West Ward Initiative Steering Committee, and we're moving forward now on the Choice Neighborhoods. We have a HUD grant, and of course this is all aimed at general improvement of the West Ward, and we're making some progress on that. We're about halfway through. It's a 2-year time period. We're about halfway through now. We are making progress on that.
Good. Planning and Codes, Councilmember Sultana.
I have not received anything from my fellow members yet, so still waiting on them. Yeah.
Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Ogles.
Thank you. Public Safety did have a meeting right prior to this council meeting, and we discussed some of our projects that are ongoing, and just kind of talked about those. And Dave, is Chief Scalzo still out there?
No.
Or did he leave?
They all went to lunch dinner.
They all went? Okay. Before tonight, but one of the things that's going to happen over the course of this next year is the police department's going to come in on a monthly basis and present the different departments within the police department and what they do and what their for example, training, field services. So we get a better understanding of all of the different things that they do. And like the mayor had mentioned, people come in and they're just really shocked at how good our police department is. And I think this gives them an opportunity to kind of talk about what it is that they do and give us a better understanding of that. So they're going to be doing that on a monthly basis. It'll be different officers. Whoever's in charge of a particular department is going to be giving that presentation. So that's going to happen over the next year or so. Other than that, I don't have any report.
Okay. Public Works, Councilmember Eddinger.
I have no report tonight, Mayor. I will, however, be moving 2 resolutions, one for a new forklift and one for survey work at Vanderveer Park.
Okay. Administration Committee, Councilmember Milan.
I have no report, Mayor.
Reporter Solicitor, Mr. Shearer.
Thank you.
Your large department is in present.
I just wanted to introduce council to Brian Losser, who is joining the solicitor's office at least for the 1 year that his position is funded, and should be working closely with our finance director because his focus will be on assisting with collections and code, but also helping Mr. Clark and myself as we might call upon him. So welcome, Brian. And then the only other thing to report is something that I'm going to hand over to Mr. Clark, having to do, if you recall, we had you always have these certificate of appropriateness issues, and 3-4 months ago you had one that the council voted to reject the certificate of appropriateness, in one case going contrary to the recommendation of the Historic District Commission. The applicant filed an appeal to Common Pleas Court. Mr. Clark has been working on that, and the problem we have is this doesn't happen often, thank goodness, because if it did, you are the arbiter of these decisions, not the Historic District Commission, the way it works. But we don't have a system built in like you do in the zoning hearing board, where people pay $1,000 fee so they could be a stenographer here and hold a full hearing. And again, fortunately, this is an uncommon occurrence where you actually get an appeal. But having faced that appeal, there's a route that it looks like we have to take, so we just wanted to report to you in public what that will be.
Thank you, Joel. There's not a whole lot to add to that other than I've been speaking with counsel for the developer, which is A&R Development. This pertained to, there was a certificate of appropriateness to destroy an old garage that was on that 5th Street property that's going to be developed. That was not approved by council. The developer filed an appeal with Court of Common Pleas. We've been in discussions. We're going to agree to remand the matter to council for a record to be created, because that's what the judge would do anyway. If we went before them, they would have no record. They couldn't decide if what council did was meritorious or not. So the matter will be coming back before council at some point, and there will be a record then created, and then the matter will be addressed anew. When all that will happen remains to be seen. You don't have any questions on that?
What is,
All right.
has A&R decided what they're doing about the actual building? That we also were, I think the consensus up here was that we were against the 5-story building on that block. Have they decided what to do?
Let me just report to you that the zoning hearing board had granted approvals. There was a pro se appeal from that decision that included some of the parties that were here. So that zoning hearing decision is under review. Beyond that, I would caution council to discuss the merits at all, because this is coming before you on the certificate of appropriateness for the record. So you should approach that, recognizing the views that were expressed at that particular meeting. Remember, the applicant wasn't here that night to make a presentation, so we really didn't have a true hearing, and that's why it's being remanded. And then you'll be acting, I believe it's not purely to make a record, but that's one of the things we'll discuss, and we'll advise you during that proceeding how it should be conducted. So the zoning approval is challenged. The developer could always proceed at their own risk. Right now, remember, they don't have a certificate of appropriateness on the big project, because there were two things you voted on. One was the garage. The other item, which I don't clearly read it as being included in the appeal, was the overall scope of the project that HDC recommended against, and City Council essentially upheld the recommendation of the HDC.
If I can clarify, the appeal is strictly limited to the demolition of the garage. It is not limited to the building whatsoever. And I will also...
And the only way to address, as I said to the owner that night, or the next door neighbor, the only way to address the fact that she feels the garage is built on her side of the property line is to tear it down. I think we...
Right. That would solve the problem of the garage encroaching on her property. That's
Exactly.
correct. And I will be sending a letter to all the residents who were here that night and spoke in opposition to the certificate of appropriateness, to make sure they're aware of the proceeding whenever we know it's going to happen, so they can appear if they want to retain counsel to argue their side of the case. I will give them notice specifically, since they were here and objected, beyond what is just published in the general notices for the public.
Okay. Thank you to the
We need a
solicitors.
stenographer then for that?
We will.
Okay, just let me know so I can make the arrangements.
Well, either that, or if you could take notes fast enough.
Nope. Mine's a synopsis. No.
Report of the mayor. The COVID update in City Hall is better. We did have a period of time where we had people either tested positive or the workers around them had a quarantine for 5 days. So as of this Friday, that executive order will be lifted, and we will be back to normal. Just so council knows, it was a shortage of employees to assess and address the needs of the public that was coming in. So we closed city council and only opened it from, city hall rather, and only opened it from 12 to 2 when we had people sitting at the front desk. It was primarily for the finance department who their tellers were out, but also we had a large group of people out in other departments, so it made it tough to answer the public's address concerns about picking up permits or anything else from engineering, from building, et cetera. So we will lift that as of the end of the week. So Monday we'll be back to normal. Last week I was in Washington, D.C. attending the U.S. Conference of Mayors. My involvement there in the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, and the Pennsylvania Municipal League is without a doubt what led us to come from $2 million in ARPA funds to $20 million in ARPA funds. And while I was there, I got to meet and talk to Mr. Sperling. Gene Sperling is the White House advisor on ARPA funds and how to use them, when not to use them. And it goes through the Treasury Department, and Secretary Yellen was there, and also Jacob Levovich. And between the three of them, I have a better understanding, at least, of how and what activities are available. So you're probably going to see a large number of budget amendments to the ARPA funds coming your way within the next 2 weeks. You know, the Conference of Mayors was, we had President Biden there, we had Secretary Yellen, we had a number of the cabinet members there. It makes it easier to talk to them. Obviously, as we get ready for our economic development administration, although the office we're going through is in Philadelphia, I was able to speak to some of the people in the EDA about our application for a $4 million grant. David's here. Why don't you come up, David? And because I was going to give the Center Square update that you gave me today and the parking garage update. Why don't you give both of them real quickly, and then I'll turn it over to Louis.
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding the parking garage, most of the crane was put together today. So,
It's a big crane.
yes, it is. The boom is as long as the site is.
Brought
So
a crane in to bring a crane in.
we did. We did. It's the biggest one we've had so far. So they'll probably start shipping precast tomorrow. That'll be the first of 477 deliveries. And we're hoping that even with some foul weather headed our way, we can stick to the time frame of 13 weeks. And I still think we're on target for the completion date, of July. So
Dave, are you still staging on Lehigh?
we are.
Okay.
What they're doing is they're bringing in the bigger pieces from there, and we're also letting them use Eastern Iron and Metal to stage some of the smaller stuff.
One sitting down there.
Yeah.
I've seen that yesterday. Yep.
So, anything that can try and keep everything flowing so we can, reduce the amount of interruption we have from a traffic standpoint. Regarding Center Square, we had our kickoff meeting today. So DePaul Contracting is our contractor. They're PennDOT certified. And they'll be mobilizing next week. And part of that is going to be setting up their ENS controls and their barricades and whatnot. So the inner circle of Center Square will basically be unavailable for the duration of the project until they're done. So, people will just be circulating around the edges of the square versus going through the center of it. But they're hoping to be out of there by the end of June. And as I've explained to council before, there's a lot of moving parts with this project. So that's the portion that the city bid, and PennDOT bid out the section or the portion of the project where the ring road's going to be converted to two-way, and at some point right around mid-June to early July, the two projects will need to meet, and we'll have to coordinate that to make sure that, because actually our project sort of ends without the sidewalk, and then the new project will come in with the new circle perimeter sidewalk that will exist on the inner lane of the circle. And at that point, by then they'll have to have the new traffic signals in, which are, I'll remind everyone, which are red, yellow, green, and that is going to be a big change.
Green.
So,
I got my way.
so we're very cognizant of the amount of change in traffic pattern and signalization there's going to be. And I can't state enough, we're going to try our very best to get it right the first time, but, sometimes what's on paper doesn't necessarily translate to what happens in the field. So I think there'll probably be some subsequent adjustment to timing, and we just have to be a little patient with that process. But I believe we'll get there, and I think it's going to be a big success. So, little inconvenience, right now, and we're trying to be very sensitive to, and really think through any adjustment or disruptions for the businesses and pedestrians. But I think it's a good plan. So here we go.
I would also mention the two projects that we are meeting this week or next week with Mike Reber about the Cattell Lafayette Street intersection, which had another accident last week.
Right.
And then we're also meeting with representatives of Turkey Hill, PennDOT, about the truck stop over in Williams Township, which is right contiguous to Southside, right there at where the Turkey Hill is now. The Turkey Hill wants to build a truck stop. Just so council knows, and I think I speak for council, but if it comes up here, it'll have to come here first. PennDOT has asked Turkey Hill has asked the city to make Line Street one way, and I just don't see that happening. I said no. So they're looking for newer or alternative. They were originally going to have a rotary at Belmont Street. They didn't want to do that because Turkey Hill said they're giving up too much land for the rotary. So now they came to us. They want us to buy a triangular piece of property on Philadelphia Road and Line Street. And if they want a development, then they need to buy it, not us. We're not buying it.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with that. But just to keep your eye on, just to let you know, we have our eye on those two projects. Even though it's in Williams Township, and normally we wouldn't get involved, but because it is so contiguous to the south side, it's right on our border, and it's really going to impact. First of all, I don't know why Turkey Hill is going into the truck stop business. Truck stops are nothing more than havens for illicit activity, and that from anything from human trafficking, sex trafficking to drug dealing. I realize I don't want to stereotype every truck stop, but Williams Township does not have a full-time police department of their own. They rely on state police, and the state police aren't going to go over there and monitor that. They're only there for 3 hours, not all night. So I think it impacts the quality of life of the Southside residents, so that's why we're involved in it, and that's why we're involved in that truck stop and not the warehouses in Peaburg, because that doesn't impact us at all. So any questions for David?
I just want to add about the Cattell Street discussion. Obviously that's been looked at for decades, and we're kind of a victim of geometry there, and we have to be just very careful what we do, because it's going to have unintended consequences. You'll impact people on McCartney, or there's been proposals for making certain parts of it one way where you're just it really is a tough situation.
When I had the store, PennDOT wanted to make Cattell Street one way going south and McCartney Street going one way north, and I mean all you're doing is taking 50% of the traffic and putting it on McCartney Street,
right,
which is a residential neighborhood.
It's a tough. That's
it's
a
tough
tough
one.
analysis.
I see
CI has made McCartney Street so rough that all the traffic now is diverted to Cattell anyway.
Yeah,
so.
it's pretty brutal.
Yeah,
It's pretty bad.
Thank you.
Okay, Lewis, Mr. Campos, excuse me.
That's all right, Mayor. Just the only thing is, I sent a brief report. It was just more data than anything dumped in a spreadsheet. But we're going to clean it up, and that was just on the amount of units, buildings, and number of units in each building. We worked on it a little bit today, cleaning it up amongst other data. So I'm going to be presenting that in a cleaner format to council. But just to give you an idea, because I know just looking through it, perusing through it, it's not that simple per se. But the unit counts, buildings that have 20 units or more, and the top end was 49 units. That's 6. So if you look at that report, you'll have six buildings that have between 22 and 49 units. And then 30 on top of that, 34 units that have 34 buildings that have between 6 units and 18 units. So the majority are under 20 units, and a small portion are above 20 units. Just to give you an idea of perspective of what we're looking at. because we talked about a high end and what's coming on the market. Because the issue, as we discussed, was these big projects that could cause a lot of pressure to the permit parking system, the way it's designed today. And these projects that are coming in are north of 49 units. So I just want to make sure we clarify that, all right? Now, the other important point that we kind of alluded to, but again, I'll put a better report together with the data so you guys can then make a better decision. And we'll put some recommendations on it, is that when we talk about the permit parking system, right, we have a finite amount of spaces in that zone, if you will, in the downtown, and that's 573 spaces currently. And if this fluctuates, so I'll have the numbers as of today, but mind you, they change on a day-to-day basis, certainly on a monthly basis, because some people renew and some people don't. So we have about 573 spaces, and we fluctuate we have about 600 parking permits. So what I plan on doing is I'll get you more information, and what I'm going to do is layer the unit count that I just went with the actual permits by building. So I'll be able to do that. I didn't send that out because it has actually resident names, et cetera, and I got to clean that up. I wasn't going to send that out. I looked at that as employee data, so I have to just clean that up. And what I could do is, for example, when I said there's a total of about 40 units or so, 40 buildings that equal all of these units that I'm talking about, I'll be able to say that the building on 2nd Street with 49 units has this amount of on-street parking passes. So we'll build that out, and then we'll give whatever other information to you all, and then that way we can have a better discussion. So hopefully I can have that out certainly by Friday before the next city council meeting, so you'll have the weekend in a couple days. But I'll try to condense it so it's easily understandable, and try to do like a.
Mr. Clark, were you able to get a hold of Mr. Nitschke today and answer to that zoning variance?
There it is. And asked him specifically about the question that was raised by Councilmember Milan regarding variances to units downtown and what happened if they were granted a parking variance. And the answer that he gave me is that a parking variance that's granted to an applicant just means that they no longer have to provide on-site parking or other means of parking for the use. It does not obligate the city or any other party to provide that parking, and it's basically on the landowner or the tenant to find parking. And all it does is absolves the developer or the landowner from the obligation of providing parking themselves.
Thank you. Dr. Ruggles?
One of my thoughts was when you mentioned that we have approximately 600 individuals or
parking
permits out, parking permits out there.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it's possible that we could establish a listing through the LPRs of who's there. What came into my mind was, are all of these used? You know, we might have 600, but maybe 500 are used.
Correct.
You know, and I mean, and all we know is how many we've issued. We don't know how many are actually being used.
Correct.
And so you know, I was just wondering with LPRs, could we try to establish, we haven't seen that particular license plate here for the last 3 months.
So so if we could hold another committee meeting then, before the next council meeting, why don't we have a discussion point on that too? Because we've been looking at different technology, and you see what's a good fit here. So we can talk about that. I think there are better ways of managing the
other thing I'd like to
system.
see from that report is if there are any people who have multiple vehicles in their own name.
Okay. Well, Well, the easy one,
And
yes,
I still
yes,
think
Mayor.
we need to change the ordinance. I think I'm tired of seeing out-of-state license plates on people who have a permit.
Virginia.
Yeah, New Jersey and Virginia, two that we see all the time. I really believe that the on-street parking program has to be controlled. And what's happening is the people from Jersey are moving here and they're not changing their license. I mean, that should force them to at least change it, put their PA inspection, because what happens, they're not getting their car inspected. And that is a danger not only to themselves, but also everybody around them who are driving down the street. Well, it is illegal. So I think there's some things, you know, obviously, as we talked about last night, and we talked about with Jeremy last Wednesday and today, this is not a global amendment to the ordinance. We need to look at the ordinance, and we agreed last night to pull it tonight so that we can look at it. But I'd like to give City Council at least some kind of a timeline as to when we're going to do this, because we need to get it done. My 90-day executive order, I really do believe that this is an anti-development ordinance. Sooner or later, the city will not have any space in the garages to give to the developers. And then they got to find it someplace else. And if they can't find any space, the zoning board won't give them the zoning variance, or the planning commission won't give them the special exception. We hope. Well, you know, if they do, then they're accountable for that. But I mean, as we talked about today, the sale of the old Fleas Club over on South Side, the planning commission did remand the fact that the 25-car parking lot goes with that building, so they have off-street parking. And Joel, I guess you said they put some restriction, they couldn't sell it?
No,
Or
they just said that the special exception was technically just the lot where the building was located. The discussion ensued that they recognize there's a parking lot next door, and under their agreement of sale, they're buying the parking lot with the building, so that the planning commission asked the developer, would they agree, because under our zoning review procedure, because that building did not technically require parking, they became grandfathered as long as the new use wasn't deemed to require more parking than the old use. But everyone knew the parking lot was right there and was being used in conjunction with that building, so that the planning commission asked the owner, would you agree that their use would be tied into the dedication of that parking lot for the building? So that became a condition of the special exception as recommended to the zoning hearing board. I don't know for sure what the zoning hearing board did, but that was part of the planning commission
I think it was pulled. I think it was pulled from the hearing.
Oh, well, I don't know, because that's the key. The only thing the planning commission did was, in its recommendation, say, let's require the parking lot to be used in the recommendation to approve the special exception is condition on the parking lot being used in conjunction with that, and the owner agreed to that.
Thank you.
But Joel, there's been probably dozens of cases where somebody would come in to develop a property and indicate to the zoning hearing board, when I was on the zoning hearing board, that they had secured off-site parking to meet that requirement. But then, that became part of that record. But I don't think that anybody ever follows up on any of that. If that
It's one of the favorite things for me to comment on in planning commissions, the meetings that I've sat at for nearly 20 years. We'll have these restrictions where there's to have agreements with specific lot owners, but there's no one following up, like on an annual basis, is that parking still there? I mean, because your certificate of occupancy technically should be tied in with that stipulation. So, I don't know what kind of chaos there would be if someone all of a sudden said, hey, wait, you were supposed to use that garage. And I remember the one on Northampton Street, on the 100 block of Northampton Street, that I don't believe is going to be available anymore for a garage. There were a number of projects that were approved.
10 spaces are going to be taken away if they get their grocery store variance.
Well, I just remember a lot of approvals were based on the idea that, oh yeah, I got 5 parking spots in that building. Well, who's monitoring that? I'm not aware of anyone monitoring that
Well,
aspect.
no, they're monitored when somebody will complain about it, and that's usually the neighborhood. And then, you know, the planning department will go up there, the code department, and check it out. It's like street trees.
Mhm.
Project comes in, Northampton County parking lot. All their trees were destroyed. They cut them down.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know whether it was because of the ash problem or what, but they cut them down. That's violating their site plan that they have on record here at the City of Easton.
And it's really just a practical problem. It's
yeah.
very difficult to follow through with the enforcement when it's done in that fashion. But it is, and then you run into the situation with the Fleas Club, which is, you know, there was a date and time where, for whatever reason, that lot was given a zoning approval with no parking at all. And then it becomes grandfathered forever. And, you know, although I imagine you could still review a special exception and say, and it's tricky because there's constitutional case. I mean, there are cases based on the Constitution and the protection of property to develop this quote grandfather concept, but it's still the neighborhood changes, and among the criteria and special exceptions is what is the impact in the neighborhood. So even though there may be no parking required technically under our zoning, I guess you could have a situation where someone says, yeah, but this new use is particularly a new non-conforming use where you're going under the special exception on the basis of another non-conforming but less burdensome use, let's say. That I could see where a planning commission and zoning board might be able to say, even if the past was no parking was required, and we're not going to say you can't use this, but you're going to have to figure out what to do about parking because we can't just approve this with the impact it will have on the neighborhood as the neighborhood is currently constituted.
And you obviously grew up in Brooklyn,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that every corner has a grocery store, and they're about 5,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of the former Easton Cafe has a proposal before Planning Commission on Monday night.
Wednesday night,
rather, next Wednesday night, to put a grocery store there,
right?
And eliminate 10 parking spaces, and they'll still have 8. Our planning department, Louis and I were just talking about it. I mean, we've been dying to get a grocery store in Easton, a full-service grocery store downtown, and they're denying it. They're recommending to the Planning Commission to deny it because they're claiming it doesn't have any off-street parking.
I mean, since you bring up Brooklyn, my father had a small grocery store.
I know.
Everybody who went there was walking. There was not going to be
anybody going there to do their weekly shopping, I can assure you.
No one ever drove a car up there.
And it's not going to be a Giant or a Weiss or any of those other big, it's going to be a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot grocery store.
And if they needed,
Yeah, Dominic's, right. Exactly.
And if they needed help to get their groceries, they would have a guy, 11-year-old guy like me, go on a bike that was twice my size to load up the groceries and go to the apartment building and get. If I was lucky, I got 5 big bottles of nickel each for the returns as my tip, and that was a quarter tip. Was great.
Yeah, dinosaurs were roaming the streets of New York too, but that's besides the point. Okay. Anything else, Louis? Mr. Campos?
No, just we're meeting. One quick thing: we're meeting. The administration is going to host Lower Paxton Township, who reached out to us. They're doing a visit, so to speak, like a peer visit, and they want to learn from us and our departments. So it's a municipality visiting us, and this came through the PML. And the mayor also is setting up, and we're discussing with him, meeting with the other mayors in the Lehigh Valley and their staffs. Mark and I are going to be heading out to Bethlehem with meeting the finance department and their directors just to understand how they operate, et cetera. As I mentioned in a past council meeting, we're thinking about potentially how we can reorganize and become more efficient in the finance department. We'll present that to council when the time comes, but we're working on it.
We have
everyone know that.
The mayors of Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton are gonna go back to having our quarterly meetings with our staff. We used to do that when I was in office last time, and it was very successful because you could share solutions, not just problems, but solutions. And we do plan on doing a couple site visits to, I know Pittston's on one of them, smaller cities, but I think they're doing a heck of a job rebounding. Mayor Lombardo up there, Dr. Ruggles.
Just, you'll notice that one of the things on the public safety aspect was to coordinate with the 3 fire departments, Easton, Bethlehem, Allentown, in developing videos that would go out. And so I think that cooperation between communities is enormously beneficial because, you know, you can have those videos, you can share them with whoever, you know. If you develop them, you don't need to just keep them yourself, you know, so.
Okay, moving on. No correspondence, no unfinished business. New business, Madam Clerk.
Okay, under new business, we had bill number 1, which would amend chapter 399 parking permits.
Well, I am not gonna move it. I'm waiting for somebody to table it.
Well, let's withdraw it.
Yeah,
Just
withdraw
withdraw
it. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. Okay, I withdraw it.
And we need a second.
No,
Second.
No,
just
no.
withdrawing.
Oh, just withdrawing?
If somebody wants
No
to
date
introduce it
introduced.
over me, they can do it. But I'm withdrawing my
No date
introduction.
on the mayor?
No.
Okay.
No date.
Okay. We have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Ettinger, whereas council authorizes the purchase of a new forklift for the 500 complex.
So moved.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion? No, Dave? Dave's here. Roll call.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
I have actually a few questions, but I think I would just reserve my vote.
Well, there's room for comment, though. We're voting on it now.
So
It's about our forklift.
I'll abstain my vote.
You can't abstain your vote.
Yeah, you can't abstain unless there's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I mean-
Unfortunately, unless there's a conflict of interest, you can't abstain.
You
Is
have a
that correct,
question about
Mr. Shear? I'm just repeating what you said.
Well, actually, we'll bring back Bill Murphy's memory, and Bill has always indicated that everybody should vote unless they have a conflict of interest, and can't, and therefore has request permission actually to recuse themselves from the vote.
So Mr. Hopkins here, if you want to ask some questions now.
Yeah, just my question is just about the, like how many times the equipment has been gone for repair in last year? Because I understand it's 24 years old, but. And another question is like, what's the approximately cost for the repair? Is there something that absolutely couldn't be repaired?
I think too. One of the things that and correct me if I'm wrong here, Dave. One of the things that we look at is how long the equipment's been online, and how we are servicing it, with the lifetime on that, plus the fact that how we bringing them back on. We're taking them offline, putting something back online.
One question was, Mrs. Sultana is basically saying that the equipment we're replacing can be repaired, and it's only 4 years old.
Dave, before you start, like, Mayor, we're in the middle of a vote. We were voting, weren't we?
No.
Yeah, it was a roll call.
Yeah, we did. Oh, we did?
I mean, we're going to discuss it as we're doing a roll call.
Well,
I mean,
I was giving Mrs. Sultana the opportunity.
No, I know,
to
but
ask
I mean,
questions.
we have
I understand
procedure
what you
now.
said, procedures,
We
but
have procedure.
I know, and so long. I just,
That's fine.
you want to address the reason for the
I'm
fine.
happy to answer any questions. It's not a problem. So the forklift that we're replacing was originally, we bought it used. And the problem is that the fuel tank is integrated into the chassis. It's not a separate fuel tank. So it's leaking gas, and they've repaired it a bunch of times, but it's really at the end of its useful life. Our technicians don't recommend spending a dime on it. Didn't I put the age of it in the memo? I thought it was over 20. I think it was like
It's actual age.
its actual age is I think it's a 1997.
There is no, you didn't send a memo.
It was under.
The memo should have been in your packet.
Yeah, it was on it. It was under the.
It was in the packet?
Jim's
No.
stuff.
It might have not been under, you had three different things. It might have not been before this particular one, but you had one thing that was on the consent agenda. It might have been with that.
So yeah, so we looked at the used market. I mean, we wouldn't ask for a piece of equipment if it could be repaired. I mean, our motors garage technicians, they are a talented bunch. You know, they keep the police on the road, the fire on the road. This piece of machinery is completely unrepairable.
I can help supplement what's in your packet. It was under the earlier agenda item, but you have here equipment purchase. Please introduce for approval by resolution authorization for the Public Works Department purchase a new forklift for the 500 complex. This is a highly utilized piece of equipment that is shared by many bureaus. The existing unit is 24 years old and need of significant repairs, which our technicians have recommended against for both safety and economic reasons. New unit can be purchased from the state contract for $30,207 and will be paid from capital funds.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Well,
David,
that's a memo from this guy, David Hopkins, Director of Public Works.
for purposes, from this, can you separate them into three different memos then? You included three resolutions in one memo. Can you separate them out for next time?
That's not really necessary. It's just that one thing went on.
I don't know how
consent agenda.
Rita sorted. Normally, when I
Yeah.
submit my agenda items, I try to submit what the item is and an
Right.
explanation.
One thing for organizational, for documentation.
Like separate pages?
Yeah, just three, yeah.
That way they can be attached to
That's
that particular.
Attach
Yeah.
the resolution then.
Not a problem.
Thank
The
you.
way you did it, Dave, was right. It's just that one of your items went under the consent agenda and the other
Okay.
didn't. So
No problem. But
it was a call on my part, apparently not a.
yeah, just for further clarity, what they do with the forklift, we get a lot of deliveries of equipment. I mean, everything that physically that comes into the city. So they use the forklift to offload everything that comes into the complex, which is daily. The motors garage uses it. If they have to take an engine out of a truck, they'll use the forklift to do it. So it's constantly in use, and it's just the one we have is really on its. It doesn't run anymore. It's pretty much dead and scrap at this point. So. I think it's about 6 months. And there's some other needs we have, which we'll discuss internally. One of when we did some research, one of our large trucks, we're trying to replace a 2004 right now, and those things get used heavily for plowing and hauling blacktop. And right now they're telling us if we ordered it today, it's 14 months. So the supply chain and lead time on these things is so long. You really have to be careful, because if you lose your piece and you need it, right. But it's really, it's really a long lead time for this stuff.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I apologize for
No, it's okay.
Are we going to?
Okay, Madam Clerk.
So, Mrs. Sultano,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
and Mr. Milan.
Aye.
Okay, we have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Ettinger, where council approved the proposal approve a proposal between the city of Easton, and I can't pronounce the name, Civitas Reggio, to perform survey work at the Van Devere site, which is going to be in preparation for the future park renovations.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
and Mr. O'Connell.
Aye.
We're at this. Any other business for City Council? From any members of Council? We're at the point for public comment on any question, comments, or concern dealing with the City of Easton. Anyone from the public like to come up? Name and address, please. Seeing none, I'll move for entertain a
adjournment.
motion.
Second.
That's what I want to do. Moved in second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
and Mr. Milan.
Yeah, I was
Coming up on
yeah.
the